Sáng nay hai
Now
vợ
off to
chồng
your
mình
left
đang ở
side,
trong
down the hill you
cái
guys can see that Alaska
City
Railroad
Bus
depot.
Tour
Without the
đó.
Alaska Railroad,
Ở
Anchorage
trên
and the entire
cái
state
xe
of
bus
Alaska
này
would
nó
not
sẽ
be what it is today. That's because in
đưa mình
1905, giant coal deposits
tham
were found
quan
all over the
ở cái
surrounding
thành
areas of
phố
Anchorage, and we had
Anchorage,
eager buyers ready
là
to
một
buy
thành
that
phố
coal
cũng lớn
in different
của
countries in
Alaska.
Asia, specifically South Korea. But we had one problem. How do we move it? The logical solution is to load up all that coal onto a barge and ship it straight out of the port of Alaska here in Anchorage. However, here in Anchorage, we actually have the second largest tide differential out of anywhere in North America, second only to the Bay of Fundy in Canada. Here in Anchorage, from low tide to high tide, the most extreme day is a 40-foot difference. So 40-foot difference from low tide to high tide, on average, it's 22 feet, but 40 feet on the most extreme day. At the time, that large tide differential made it impossible to ship all that coal out of our port. So all that coal would have to be shipped out of the second closest deep water port in Seward, Alaska, 118 miles away. We needed a railroad. Two companies have come up to Alaska to try to build that railroad. Helped construct the Panama Canal. Isn't that crazy? That's a very impressive resume. Also, quite the relocation. As we go up this hill, to your right side, behind this railroad depot, all of this flat land right here is actually the original town site of Anchorage. So the railroad was being constructed, there was about 2,000 men and 1,000 insulated army tents all spread throughout this land. And that gave us our name, before we were Anchorage, of Tent City, which is not the most creative name in my opinion, right? 2,000 men, 1,000 tents, Tent City. That was our name. And after that railroad was complete, 600 men stayed behind and decided to live in Tent City. But those men staying behind, their families began to move up. These families hated the name Tent City. So we had a vote to officially name our city. The top three names that were on that ballot were Alaska City, Tent City, and Anchorage. And Anchorage came in a distant third place. Anchorage lost that vote. The name that we chose for our city was Alaska City, Alaska. Once again, not going with the most creative choice. But with this exciting news, we contacted the Seattle Postmaster because all of our mail was going through Seattle at the time since we were still a territory and they needed an official name to send all of our mail to. So we told that Seattle Postmaster, hey, we are an official city. We have a real name. We are Alaska City, Alaska. About 2 weeks later, we received a telegram back from that Seattle Postmaster, and he said, you guys can call yourself whatever you want. We've been calling you Anchorage officially for the past year. Your name is Anchorage. And we said, okay, our name is Anchorage. Officially chosen by the United States Postal Service. And where does the name Anchorage actually come from? Because it did float around. That was one of the names on our ballot. The name Anchorage actually comes from the fact that when the railroad was being constructed, those large ships carrying construction supplies could not port here due to that tide differential. Instead, they had to anchor out in the Cook Inlet and then use smaller ships to deliver those supplies. For the construction of our railroad, this was their anchorage. And that's where the name Anchorage came from. It's a very simple name. That body of water to your right side, that is the Cook Inlet, a part of the Pacific Ocean named after Captain James Cook, whose statue you're going to briefly see off to your right side, overlooking his namesake. So we're not going to stop here. You're going to briefly see Captain James Cook off to your right side, overlooking his namesake. There he is. Not his best side. There he is. Now, Captain James Cook was a famed British explorer who in July of 1776 was commissioned to find a shorter trade route between England and India, specifically a river through the Northwest Passage. Captain Cook and his crew made their way up here into this inlet in July of 1778. And when they got up here, they noticed two distinct bodies of water within that inlet that extended it to the north and extended it to the south. And we now know those two bodies of water today as the Knik Arm and the Turnagain Arm. First they sailed up the Knik Arm, and as they found, it was a dead end.
Stop recording.
Out for you. In that mule's left leg, which is on the right side of the mural, just above the yellow part of the foot, in that black cup, you can see the number 71.
Yep, that's nice.
Keep looking, you'll find it. He handed them detention slips. Finally, getting it back after all those years. And look, he had a good sense of humor. Those detention slips turned out to be free drink tickets to one of the local bars. So he just wanted to get them back in a fun way and let them know that he knew after 4 years. Now, before I continue talking about West High, I also wanted to point out that up here on your right side, you guys are going to notice a tree that has been stripped of the bark and has the wood exposed. You'll see it up here in just a moment. And then about 15 seconds up ahead, you're going to see another group of trees that have had the same thing. So there's that tree, bark stripped, wood exposed. That tree has been stripped of the bark by moose. During the early springtime, when moose don't have as much leafy green vegetation available, they rely on eating bark as a part of their diet. And there's another group up to your right side. So not as much this time of year. The answer is probably no. That's because all three stories are underground. So this right here is Anchorage's underground home. That front lawn you see is actually their roof. Those two skylights go directly down into their kitchen and living room. That covered walkway goes 14 steps down to the main entrance. What it is, it's a list of families who voluntarily sign their name up on this list to then be called upon to the scene of an accident to harvest that moose, salvage as much meat as possible that they can then keep and eat for themselves. Now look, this might be one of the least fun facts of the tour. At first glance, might raise an eyebrow. This is a beautiful system. These families are volunteering to do all this work for the state of Alaska, and they're able to benefit from these unfortunate accidents. Why wouldn't you let them? It is a win-win situation. So if that sounds, interesting to you, move up to Alaska and enter the roadkill lottery. It's a great time. We do have a lot of moose here in Alaska. Throughout the entire city of Anchorage, we have about 1,200 moose in total. That's compared to a statewide population of 150 to 175. Lake Hood, Lake Spinard joined together to make the Lake Hood seaplane base. We also have this gravel runway off to your left side for these planes with tires to take off and land from all year round. So you can see that plane taxiing through. Don't want to cut off the plane here. Wouldn't be good for either of us. There's a good photo if you can get it. We don't stop flying during the winter. That's what I wanted to say. When this lake is completely frozen over and there's an ice depth of minimum 12 inches in at least 4 of the different areas that they check, we'll start operating directly off of the ice using skis. So we use skis during the wintertime. These skis, I'm not going to have any direct examples this time of year. The 2 examples that I typically used have already been switched over to floats for the summertime. Skis can be International Airport here in Anchorage. Our main airport is actually the 4th busiest cargo airport in the entire world. Number 1 on that list is Hong Kong International Airport in China. Number 2 is Shanghai International Airport, also in China. Number 3 is Memphis Airport in Tennessee. That's because of FedEx. Number 4 is our Ted Stevens International Airport here in Anchorage. And that has to do with our location. Anchorage is geographically perfect to act as a refueling stop in a central cargo hub, specifically in international trade between North America and Asia. So all these big cargo planes that have just crossed the Pacific Ocean or are getting ready to cross the Pacific Ocean can stop here in Anchorage to refuel, switch cargo between planes, switch personnel before continuing on their journey to their final destination. Hold over here for a moment to let you guys get a better look at the lake and see some mountains here. We have 2 different mountain ranges that we can see from the stop. This closer mountain range that's being partially obstructed by the clouds, this closer one, across the lake and above the trees, that is the Chugach Range, Chugach. And that further mountain range that you have off to your right side, further off in the distance, also being partially obstructed by the clouds, that is the Kenai Range, so Kenai, down on the Kenai Peninsula. If you guys are going to be heading down to Whittier, Seward, Homer, those further mountains are going to be the ones that you'll be heading down towards. And then these close